Ladies and gentlemen, good morning once again. And now, will you please welcome your host, David Kirkpatrick.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. It's been going pretty well from all that I'm hearing. Breakfast roundtables were good. Last night, there was a lot of great discussion. And I want to just thank everybody for your active participation. And also to thank our gold sponsors, AT&T, Herman Miller, and IDA Ireland. We really appreciate their support. This morning we have a bunch of amazing speakers. We're leading off with Barry Diller, who Andy Serwer, who's interviewing him, just said, the way to introduce Barry is to say he's done everything. And that is kind of true. He's been CEO of Paramount Pictures, Fox. He's now CEO of IAC, Interactive Corp, formerly. Company with more than 35 consumer brands. They include Match.com, Expedia.com, Ticketmaster, CitySearch, Ask.com, many others. And so Andy's here to talk to him about all of the things that are going on in the internet, media space, interactions, advertising. So Barry Diller, Andy Serwer.
Here, Barry.
These are the things I'm not supposed to
Yeah,
touch?
I was going to say, they told us not to touch these things. And, you know, I don't know if you remember.
Good luck.
The Dennis the Menace movie with Walter Matthau as Mr. Wilson. Whatever you do, Barry, don't touch those things.
Okay.
Okay. Anyway, welcome. Good morning.
Good morning.
It is true that Barry Diller has done just about everything that there is to be done in the media world. But right now, of course, he is steeped in new media, digital media, online media, and is the CEO and chairman of IAC, as well as the chairman of Ticketmaster and the chairman of Expedia. And we'll get into all your myriad businesses. IAC has plenty of businesses unto itself, but there are other parts that were spun off last year.
Oh, yes.
And we can talk about, and before that with Expedia. If you follow what Barry does, there's a lot of moving parts, shall we say. But I want to talk about IAC because, as all of you probably know, there's some of the greatest brands online anywhere. I mean, Evite, CitySearch, Match.com, and Ask are just some of them, or just 5 of the 34 or 40 or 50, depending on what week it is.
Depending upon the mood.
Yeah, depending on his mood. And so the question I think that occurs to me and probably other people out there is, you've got all these parts, and is the whole greater than the parts? And what's the strategy of putting all these different brands together?
Well, the truth is we spun off into essentially 5 separate public companies. We spun off our assets, some of our assets, because I don't believe that the really right way to look at anything is, in a sense, is the whole greater than, is the sum greater than, and all of that. The truth is that I think that when you get businesses up to a level where they should stand on their own, be independent, be simple and clear and independent, that is what should happen. I don't really believe in synergies. The relationships between the entities that we now have are relatively slim. They come up, the area they really come up in is in the area of best practices, functional situations that you can spread across several things. But I'm not a believer in agglomeration.
So why not spin off all 35 or 40 or 50?
Well, because they're not of sufficient size yet, and
right.
they're still, in a sense, in formation, with the exception really of Match.com, which is so dominant in terms of personals and dating and all of that all over the world. But other than that, the 2 areas that IAC is really in, the 2 areas that group things together, that actually separate things, are our local efforts, which are between CitySearch and Service Magic, and trying to really become the leading entity in organizing local internet life. And on the other side is our search businesses, And they are still, both of those are still, they're in formation. So they're not sufficiently landed yet. I'm hopeful that they will be, but they're not yet.
All right, just to get you all up to speed, to remind you, last year, and what Barry was talking about specifically, the company spun off Ticketmaster Tree, which was Lending Tree, so it's a financial services piece, and then HSN.
And Interval.
And Interval, which is
a
the
timeshare
vacation,
business.
right, a time-sharing business. And before that, they spun off Expedia. So I guess the next question I have, and I've always wanted to ask you this, Barry, and I'm glad we're doing this in front of a group of friends here.
Oh, good.
Which is,
That's very trusting.
Yeah, exactly. You seem to be a serial deal maker, and the question is why? Are you creating value, or are you just kind of like a shark that has to keep swimming?
Somewhere between the two.
Yeah.
No, well, yes. How's that?
Yeah, it's
one or the other.
Right.
Here's the thing. It's not really serial deal making. We started in '92 with the Home Shopping Network, with the most primitive form of interactivity.
Right.
And then along came the internet. And essentially we followed our curiosity.
Right.
We're not deal junkies in a sense, but there was a lot of curiosity and a ton of opportunity.
Right.
And so we just followed the opportunity. We built up a company that had, at any weighted moment had $25 billion or so of assets. And it was, I found, an unwieldy conglomerate. And I've never thought that that is a great business organization. And I one day said, oh my God, I've gotten here where not only do we, I think, not add very much value to these businesses, I actually think we prevent them. My great story about this is one day the Ticketmaster group came in and they said, we've got all these investments we want to make. And so we want to take our earnings down for the next year about a little over 20% less than last year. And I said, and so you're coming to me, Daddy, to ask me? I'm a steward for shareholders.
Right.
You couldn't get away with that if you were in your own company. If you were standing alone in the light of every day,
Right.
and not having somebody up there cross-allocating and doing everything and using this arm to help that arm so that, in fact, it would all balance out. In fact, this is a false deal here. You're
Right.
asking me to do this thing you couldn't get away with.
Well, never mind from a managing earnings
in an honest
Right.
game.
Right.
And that was a big epiphany for me. And from there, I started thinking, you know what, this doesn't work. And I then plotted to disassemble it.
Right.
And that's what we've done. Each of the companies that remain, including IAC, is now a standalone entity, the fairly pure. Each of the others that have spun off, by definition, are purer than IAC, which is still involved in multiple businesses.
But IAC, and the common denominator is consumer internet, right?
Yes,
I mean,
absolutely. We have no interest in business-to-business things.
Right, and if something gets scalable, or they already are scalable, but if something gets of scale in IAC, you might spin that out too?
Sure we would. When it gets to a point when it deserves and should be, and in terms of being able to bring value to the shareholders of the company, greater value, because when we started spinning off these businesses, the first day they said, oh, this is a disaster, they're all trading under what they did, et cetera. Then we had a bad market. Well, the truth is now, just in this last period, it is trading at above what it traded for. The companies are doing well, given the economic issues and all. They're all profitable. They're all doing okay. And over time, there's no question it's going to create more value. So to me, eventually, hopefully, that's what will happen with IAC.
I thought it was interesting that you said that getting into the internet businesses was sort of a natural evolution from home shopping. That was sort of where you started, and you just got into the internet that way, which is pretty amazing. I think that one thing that people might want to know from you, Barry, is you're in all these different online internet businesses. What is, in your mind, the hottest place to be, or the best place, the best opportunity for digital businesses today?
Well, I think the truth is, I think any place, I mean, to talk about hot, we're not in a particular period of hotness right now, as we tend to know.
True.
But we're still, I mean, people say this, it's kind of bromidic. We're still at such an early stage. We're still in the internet in this mythology of it's a free system, which of course it really isn't, and it is not going to be. We're in this period where, in a sense, content, which was thrown up, so to speak, I don't mean that disparagingly, content was put out on the theory that maybe there'd be a business model for it. Mm-hmm. Many things were put out on the internet on the theory that, well, we'll get audience and then we'll find, money will follow audience. Money, by the way, does tend to follow audience, but it of course depends upon how much expenses you've built up to get that audience and all that. But the internet now is just getting to the stage where it's going to be certainly a 2 revenue stream system, at least 2, and probably 3.
And those are?
And those are, of course, advertising, subscription, and let's call it pure pay, and in there is transactions. So there are going to be, so to be engaged in the internet, which is going to continue to evolve, and it's very early evolution, is all hot, depending upon the temperature, the expense you're running during the daytime, and how you tend to want to sleep at night.
Well, it's all okay. It's all hot, but some things are hotter than others. And we were just talking about...
Well, yeah, it's nice if you have, for instance, a business like Match.com, which has 1,500,000 subscribers. There's a pure pay model. 1,500,000 people pay $25 a month or so to do this thing. Now, and that's a very good margin, really remarkably solid business.
I mean, there's so many, all these businesses, I have a million questions for all of them, like with Match.com. What's the churn on that? Do you know? I mean, sure, but people come in, they get married, they leave, right? And
yeah,
new
but
people
you know
come
what
in.
often happens is it doesn't work out.
There is that.
So, you know.
Yep. Okay.
The train goes out, the train comes in.
The tide comes in, the tide goes out. A lot of ways to talk about that. All right, it'll be interesting.
Yes.
So, and the other thing we were talking about, though, in terms of hot businesses, local advertising and with city search. Do you want to talk about that? I mean, you feel like you finally cracked the code there.
Well, I think what we're doing is we're building up a network. You know, we have a huge amount of publishers on one side, including City Search. We have MapQuest. We have all sorts of people who are publishers in our network. And on the other side, we have all these merchants. And we have all this traffic in the middle and all these systems to get it so that what the merchant needs, which is either traffic or sales or whatever it is that the merchant wants, is in a network that actually works. Now, it's taken us almost 15 years. I mean, literally, since '95.
Founded in Pasadena, by the way, correct?
Up the street, yes.
City Search was.
It's taken us all of that long through so many different, byways of business models and this and that to get to this stage where we have this concept of the city grid, which is publishers, advertisers, and traffic that is organized in a way to be absolutely trackable in terms of what happens when somebody goes onto an advertiser site, et cetera, or clicks on something.
Right, and we said, Craigslist obviously is local that way, but they don't seem to have the same drive to monetize necessarily.
No, we do.
And you do, okay.
We're different.
Interesting. So another hot area is, and that I know that you're keen on, is video. And I think you have a new video venture that you'd like to maybe unveil, I think isn't too strong a word, right here, right now. College Humor, it's something to do with that?
Well, I think we're announcing it later today.
Well, this is a good
waiting
time.
for some papers to get signed. But
good a time as any, I think, Barry.
But it's okay.
Yeah.
College Humor, which we bought a few years ago, College Humor has inside of it this little band, about 20, 25 people, and they've been making videos. They make about 10 videos a week. the videos are seen by, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of people. And we have taken that group, plus we acquired a group from another company, which was called City Lights. And we're putting these two things together. And what this other group has made 1,200 hours of internet programming and 800 hours of actual television programming on all sorts of cable program channels, but all, excuse me, done in, let's call it the new way of doing things, which in addition to being dirt cheap, is on the, in terms of the things that College Humor has done, they're great stuff. I mean, great video comes out of really extremely, on any level, really well produced, usually, crackingly funny.
Ribald.
Pardon me?
Ribald.
Some of it, and some of it,
Sophomoric.
Some of it not. They
Funny.
did yeah. But it's no,
I love it.
It's really, honestly, I've been around programming a while. At least I ought to know what a decent level of production is. And these things are being made for $3,000, $5,000, $7,000, $10 maybe $1,000 a piece. Now, my analogy to this is that in 1910, between 1910, 1913, 14, formation of the movie business. What was one of the really key founders of it, actually, Cecil B. DeMille, forget the director part of it, the later director. But at that time, what were they doing? They were making one-reelers. One-reelers, because that was all the film that could fit in the thing.
Right.
And one-reelers were 7 to 10 minutes long. And they were doing it, in a sense, in the same concept as this little band of people, where these 25 people we have, each one of them are often producer, director, actor, writer.
Right.
And on a given day, they'll be doing 3 of those jobs, and on another day, they'll be doing 2 of those jobs. They are a little band of gaining expertise at making film, video, right?
Right.
I think it's analogous to the same period. This same group is going to graduate to 2-reelers,
right,
in the vernacular, and onto all forms, but it's going to do it from a digital sensibility. And so I really do think for us to invest in this, and this doesn't take a lot of capital, but there is no question that this kind of creativity, this kind of learning your craft that way, than learning your craft 20 miles away, being a D-girl at some television or film production company. D-girls are guys and girls. They're just a form of kind of insider talking to each other. Very incestuous, this little community down the road. This is all open and all creative every day. And I think they're going to take over the world eventually. Not necessarily this group, but I think groups like them are really the future. So that's why we're doing it. I'm really excited about it. I think it's a great time to approach the business, the making of programming from a digital fatherhood rather than from the other way, trying to crack downsize yourself, which is usually impossible.
I hear you. But speaking of some entrepreneurial, digital entrepreneurs, I should say, we had Biz Stone here yesterday from Twitter, and I have heard that you're somewhat skeptical of Twitter, though.
Well, it's not I'm skeptical of it. I think it's a great communication device. The imposition of 140 characters forces a certain kind of communication. It can be as boring as 8,000 words, but nevertheless. The idea that the plane goes down on the Hudson River and 18 seconds later, this thing is being broadcast to the world in real time. Real-time information, and I'm not talking about real-time information meaning I'm going to the doctor now, I just left the doctor now, I have a cavity, et cetera, and on and on. All that stuff is just, is of course only meaningful to the cavity person. But as a real-time communication device, it's very strong. Now, whether or not anybody is going to find ways to advertise within it, or, as people would like to say, be able to promote from it, which is the more, thing you think about and say, well, okay, you could probably be, if you have a product to sell, you can probably promote it by various kinds of tweets. That may be true. It doesn't seem like it's a very natural advertising. Very natural, but who knows?
And you don't tweet?
No. I did it. Well, one day I got in there, and I've been in and out of it to learn about it, try and understand it, and whatever. It's not exactly for me, but meaning, no. First of all, I don't go to the dentist, so things like that. I don't do anything that would cause me to emote. But
interesting. It'd be pretty interesting, I think.
But when I went in, the thing is then people like expect you to do things because they like follow you, followers, and you build up all these followers, and then if you've never said anything, it's like Facebook. People invite you, if you're on Facebook and people invite you and you don't respond, it's like a rejection. You don't really mean it as a rejection, but.
Is this some personal experience here, or?
What?
I mean, with this Facebook, and you try.
Well, Facebook, yeah,
friend someone, they didn't friend you back.
If you have any, if you're in the world at all, and people know your name or whatever, lots of people want, quote, to be your friend. Now, I don't think they really want to be my friend.
Well, not really your friends, Barry. I mean, they just, they want to communicate with you, right?
The word friend. Thank you. Okay.
All right.
So they ask you to do it, and you build up like thousands of these friend requests, and. It's like like my wife who does it. She has, I think, 87,000 friends. But
she's kind of famous too.
But that's her business,
right?
She's out there selling clothes, and so anyway, I don't have any friends.
But you don't have any friends, all right? You don't have any time too. So to be fair.
Oh, I got time, but I got no friends.
Okay, stand corrected. Oh, you got plenty of time and no friends. All right, we'll leave it at that. I'm not going to continue that one.
What can we do?
Do we have any questions out here? I think live questions are really, a good thing. I mean, these Spot Me questions are good too. Yes, Adam.
Barry, Adam Lashinsky with
Fortune
Magazine.
Right.
You laid out a compelling vision of the three revenue streams you see the content industry pursuing. Your companies are pursuing them in the weeds. You're collecting revenue, but at a high and so I guess you presented a cup half full perspective, but to most people in the industry right now, the cup is half empty. The revenue is evaporating far more quickly than the industry is coming up with ways to collect revenue.
Define the industry. You're talking about print?
No, I mean all content. I'm being very, it's purposely.
You mean print and web, not just web, though?
I mean all kinds of content, yeah, and video and what have you. And so my question is, when do you see us reaching an equilibrium point again? When is the crisis going to end?
Well, first of all, it's not a shock to you that we have an advertising slowdown, politely called. This is not a great time to be exactly exuberant about advertising anyway. But let's presume we get back to zero, much less 5-6% advertising growth as we've had the last, I think we will continue to have if you flatten this period out over 20, 30 years, right? So set that part, just force down aside. I have no question that in fact, that we're going to see advertising evolve from this tonnage of inventory right now. Display advertising, there's just so much display advertising inventory. Given the downdraft, given the tonnage of inventory, we're going to see evolve from this much more CPA advertising, much different forms of display advertising. Out of the shreds of this are going to come, I think, very vibrant business models. This is a rough time, but it's not just that this is a rough time, excuse me, economically for a high street store or for anybody selling aircraft engines. This is a particular tough time for media content, because we are transitioning from an old form to a new form. And those things are always bloody. And there's going to be much more. I mean, if you think that there's trouble now, the creative destruction that is going to be caused to all the distributors who grew and got their lock on the world because there was scarcity. That's how all distribution got founded, on the basis of scarcity. Scarcity of analog television spectrum, scarcity of cable, scarcity of this, scarcity of movie theaters, of distributors that could put throughput through for films. All that ending because of the internet. The internet is absolute plenty. And the only problem for the internet is, does somebody come along and squeeze the pipe as the pipe was squeezed by distributors of the past and be the toll bridge taker? And I don't think that's going to happen. So I'm very optimistic about this, as you could see.
The question man.
Douglas Warshaw from Jockeypedia. Barry, picking up on exactly that thought, as TV sets get IP enabled and suddenly there's no difference between the TV and the computer and an infinite number of channels are coming to the living room, do you see exactly what's happened to the print media happening to the networks? And what's your timeline on when that happens, if you think that happens?
Well, as I said, I think there's a lot of, so to speak, creative destruction to come because of this. And I think that I would not predict exactly. I mean, I think it's, there's no way to predict it in time. But in fact, if you're able to press a button and publish to the world with nobody between you and the consumer, and you get, which we don't yet have, but I promise you we're going to have, very sophisticated search and navigation systems that are going to be able to get us what we want. Then the question of broadcast networks or general entertainment cable networks as against pure sports networks or golf networks or something like that that's just, that just does the thing. I think they're all challenged, but I don't know when.
Question back there.
Hi, Barry. Hello. Hey, Barry. Richard Siklos, who, by the way, I think we are friends on Facebook, so thank you.
Yeah,
for
but
that.
he doesn't,
You've been funding, it's a
Well,
small
hi,
part of...
friend.
This is a big deal for him.
Let's have a hug. Not a
Yes,
big,
Richard.
Start again.
Yes, Richard.
Not a big deal for IAC, but you are funding a journalistic effort, the Daily Beast, and when we last spoke about it several months ago, you said to me, this is kind of following Adam's point, that they had put up an ad and you were outraged by it and you demanded that they take it down.
It's true.
So you obviously are very patient, the kind of person that journalists like to work for, no doubt. But what is the thinking? You're, in this market that you've just described, you're backing a media website where you are hesitant to put up advertising.
Well, it's not that I'm hesitant to put up advertising at all. That would be a lot nuts. But the concept of Daily Beast,
This is the Daily Beast, Tina Brown.
Daily Beast started essentially 7 months ago. And it has definitely created certainly audience. It has done a very good job, early job. It is certainly it's an essentially original place. It's not particularly an aggregator. It creates content, and that is its concept. And our strategy for it is to build up its audience. And yes, we're a company that we don't splurge money recklessly, but for us, this is not a hard thing for us to finance. It's not going to break even the piggy part of the bank. So, but nevertheless, it's going to have to earn its way. We didn't want to take advertising because we don't believe display advertising is the answer. And we think, again, part of the evolution of the internet is going to be in different forms of advertising. What we're doing, we did take an ad recently for Bottega Veneta. And if anybody saw it, it was a completely different kind of advertising than that on the internet now. Much more akin to art advertising or advertising that you would see in Vanity Fair books or Vogue or whatever, where you would see, you're seeing real color, real photography, beautifully displayed, integrated into the content in a way that display advertising banners and little 2 by 300 boxes, rectilinear, I think, meaningless stuff. Sorry, I shouldn't say meaningless. In other words, that's the tonnage that doesn't generate very much. But the chance for Daily Beast is that it will have advertising as unique and original as its content. And that will take us years to develop. But I do think that's one of the directions advertising is going to go in.
Quick last question.
Question, Poppy Harlow with CNN Money. You have a balance sheet that is envied by many, many companies right now. Aside from what you've announced today, anything that interests you in buying? Because in the spring and April, you said, honestly, I've got billions and I can't find anything I want to buy.
$9 billion in cash, is that?
No. 2.
I saw someone said 9.
No.
Well,
that's
the
too much.
problem with the, yeah.
No. But we're definitely overcapitalized, and the answer is not really. I mean, there are some things. Look, we bought a company last week called People Media, which is niche sites for dating, which $70 or $80 million or so we spent on that. So we'll buy things, but we're not going to buy things for the inflated values that still seem to exist. And so that's just fine. We're quite patient about that.
Great. All right, well, that was a really cool conversation, Barry. So
Pleasure.
please join me in thanking Barry Diller. Barry Diller.